Welcome to another OCD Recovery Instagram Live. I thought I'd come on here and quickly do a Q&A. I haven't been on here for the last couple of days, so I was getting some messages to come on and do that. So I will cover any questions that you want to ask. Just put them along the bottom here in the comments and I will cover those. Any specific topic that I wanted to look at? Well, I think I'll probably look at that post that I did today talking about OCD recovery in stages. So what happens with OCD recovery? People often think it's like some kind of blueprint that needs to be followed, and if they get one piece wrong, they're completely stuck forever, which then brings in the whole fear of fear scenario, that cycle. So realistically, don't view it as stages, something where you have to go through in bit by bit. I'm talking about you have a sort of a program that you follow to get better, but don't view the actual recovery process, the sort of reduction in anxiety symptoms as stages. It's a gradual phasing. Now that's going to be like a roller coaster ride. That's going to be an up and down journey that's just going to go all over the place. It's not going to stick to a specific pattern. Some of your worst days are going to follow your best days and vice versa. And I think that's very important, because otherwise what happens is you'll get physical symptoms of anxiety come out of nowhere. It might be, for example, you might have the flu. That can often lead to heightened anxiety symptoms. You might have a really bad hangover. That might lead to heightened anxiety symptoms. So many different areas that can raise anxiety, and then you can feel like, gosh, I'm at a setback. I'm stuck again. I'm never going to get better. And the biggest driver of OCD and all anxiety disorders is the fear of fear cycle. Except people don't see it usually because it's so quick and they miss it and they don't see it. It's very, very instant. So, it gets in on a fear. So you might have a fear of, what if I harm someone or something like that? And what's realistically happening is it's not so much the fear of what if you harm someone, it's the fear of what if you can't stop thinking about harming someone. What if the anxiety stays there just carrying on in the background, and that stays sort of humming away, and you don't want that. So there's so many different versions of that leads to the problem and keeps you stuck. So you've got to look for that. That fear of fear cycle is very sneaky. It gets in there. It's like anything. Let me give you an example. So in my own journey, now that I don't experience chronic locked-on anxiety, there will be occasionally a time where I notice a sort of a tiny bit of anxiety creep in from somewhere that I wasn't spotting, that just comes out of nowhere. Maybe it's after a nap in the day. Suddenly you just wake up and you think, you might have an instant thought like, what if I was supposed to be somewhere? What if I was supposed to do something regarding to work or something like that? And that might be very quick, and it might be very subtle, and it might just be a behavioral response. It's very much like that. I think a good example of where that's the case is this is someone who I was a huge fan of, Christopher Hitchens. He was an incredible speaker, and I remember at one point he was talking about the torture of waterboarding, and he wanted to have an understanding of it. So he decided to be waterboarded himself, which is obviously a really unpleasant experience. And he wanted to see what it was like, and he did it. And he instantly had to sort of call the exercise off in the middle straight away when he felt the feelings, because they felt so unbearable. And he was somebody that didn't suffer from any anxiety or anything like that. And then what happened is, for years afterwards, even when he was going for a jog or he was slightly hot, he felt that it was raised up. He felt that he felt that suddenly he would have the suffocation feeling, he'd have the anxiety symptoms and so on, and they would come in. And so he was very frightened that sensation was still there from that experience, like a sort of PTSD sensitization just because it's there in the sort of sensitized nerves. And I think it's a very important point to remember, because you will have little sensations that you forget. One thing that I've got through my father, through my own genetics, is gastroesophageal reflux. disease. So occasionally I'll get acid reflux, but not like when I used to have anxiety, really chronic anxiety. I'll get it maybe if I drink too much red wine, too much spicy food, something like that. So sometimes I might wake up in the night and notice that heartburn sensation, and it will trigger the sensitized sort of the pathway, remembering that, and I can suddenly feel a bit of anxiety in the middle of the night. But these things settle very quickly because I am aware of those. I am aware of what it does. I'm not scared of it. I leave it to play out. What's the worst that could happen? I don't even have to play those scenarios out, but I can see, okay, maybe it burns my throat. Maybe I have to go to hospital, whatever. I'm not concerned about that. So I'm concerned about having a good health, but I'm not terrified. So that's the difference. So you will get little sort of things like that come on out of nowhere. It can be in any way, like somebody who's maybe got asthma feels a slight shortness of breath because of hay fever, which is very common. I've got hay fever myself at the moment, and they might notice, but I haven't got asthma, but they might notice if they did, that mimics the sort of shortness of breath symptom of asthma. So they could very much get into that scenario of that anxiety because they're expecting something to come which isn't, but it's just a habit that's built up. It's not even something they're consciously aware of. We have lots of that going on in the background. Okay, now let's have a look at some of these questions quickly. How do you deal with overwhelmed multiple themes at once? You've got to allow all themes to play out. It doesn't matter if you've got one locked or you've got multiple ones locked. It makes no difference. Leave them all to play out regardless. Just go about life as like a human being who doesn't have an anxiety disorder, walking about, living life, functioning in life as best you can, leaving them to play out. And then you'll work through each of these ones bit by bit as you go along, being able to get under, you don't have to get under all, but as you get under the main fears, then it branches out into the others. That's why we teach unconditional self-life and other acceptance, because it gets into everything. But if you start with some of the main ones, it will sort of move across and go into the rest. That one about I need to be easygoing. Why do you need to be easygoing? There's nowhere that says you have to be easygoing. There's no obligation that you have to be easygoing. Existential OCD, I've got a YouTube video talking all about that specifically. If you go on YouTube, you can find that video. Harm OCD from years ago, false memory, real event. You'll need the unconditional self-acceptance to get under that, which is what I talk about quite a lot in detail on here, because I found for myself with that as my main theme, it wouldn't unlock till I really got under that and realized I wouldn't write myself off under any circumstances. The idea of not existing, that all comes into existential. It's all the same thing. Going crazy is one of the most common OCD fears. It's usually related to being locked up in a mental asylum, being taken away from your family, that kind of stuff. Retyping messages and deleting them. Don't retype them. Leave them there. Whatever you experience, whatever mistakes are in there, leave them to be. And accept that people may judge you, but it's not going to kill you. It was a fear of fear and obsessing about obsessing. Similar, yeah, similar pattern. Fear of fear is a main driver behind so much. Is that if unconditional acceptance is applied to, say, POCD, and you're accepting that you can still live a fulfilled life, shouldn't you still be treated for... No, because let me explain this. OCD, if we were going to take everything that OCD suggests as fact, we'd be going in today and handing ourselves in prison, then going to hospital for cancer surgery, then breaking up with our wife, then preparing for the world going to end. It's about accepting possibilities, uncertainty, not allowing what could happen, taking that risk, learning to see we don't write ourselves off or in any circumstance, but it's about learning to take that risk, not acting on all the OCD thoughts. Because otherwise we'd break up with our partner instantly with our OCD. People often get confused with that. I don't cover every question because there's a lot. I just cover the main ones that I can answer. I don't cover broad questions like how to recover from OCD or what is unconditional self-acceptance. Acceptance is not agreement. Let me explain. I don't want to have cancer, but if I get cancer, well, I don't know till I'm in that scenario. I don't think anyone can say, but I would like to think that with my understanding, I could accept it and make peace with it. Accepting and making peace with it is acknowledging that it is happening, but I do not want it. That's the difference. Acknowledging it's happening, making peace with the fact that it's happening, but I do not want it. Our OCD is overwhelming. Feeling anxious with a partner all the time. No, that's not overwhelming. The irrational belief that about your partners is what's making it feel overwhelming. So we need to get under those, and that's what will get you better. Okay, guys, I will see you on the next Instagram Live. I'll be back up in the next couple of days. Thanks for your questions, and I'll be on here doing another topic. I'll try not to do just Q&As. I'll try and cover some of the main topics that I need to cover, which are homosexual OCD, trans OCD, more on existential OCD, more in detail on ROCD, sensory motor OCD, bigger look, POCD. What other ones have I left off there that I really want to get covered? I want to go into existential OCD, lots of different areas of it. Sensory motor OCD, lots of the areas that aren't covered, that we often don't cover. And POCD, because there's so much to get into it, and it's probably the most popular theme. All right, guys, I'll see you on the next Instagram Live. Take it easy. Bye.